The uncertainty this year is unprecedented. How is UCLA Anderson, and specifically its admissions dean, responding? What can Anderson applicants and students expect in 2020-2021? Let's find out.
Welcome to Admission Straight Talk, the podcast dedicated to graduate admissions and helping you approach the application process thoughtfully and successfully. Your host is Accepted's founder and world-renowned admissions guru, Linda Abraham. At Accepted, our mission is to get you to that unforgettable moment when you read your acceptance email and shout, "Yes, I'm in!" Confident you'll be attending the perfect program to help you launch the career of your dreams.
Welcome to the 371st episode of Admission Straight Talk. Thanks for tuning in. Before we get to our wonderful guest, I want to invite you to take advantage of a brand new tool at Accepted, the Mba Admissions Calculator. Are you ready to apply to your dream MBA programs? Are you competitive at your target schools? Accepted's MBA Admissions Calculator can give you a quick reality check. Just go to accepted.com/371quiz, complete the quiz, and you'll not only get an assessment, but tips on how to improve your qualifications. Plus, it's all free. Again, use the calculator at accept.com/371quiz to obtain your complimentary assessment. It gives me great pleasure to have back on Admission Straight Talk Alex Lawrence, Assistant Dean of MBA Admissions and Financial Aid at UCLA Anderson School of Management, which just happens to be where I earned my MBA. Alex is a fellow Anderson alum who earned his MBA in 1999. Prior to that, he earned a bachelor's in electrical engineering. And after earning his MBA, he worked in management consulting for 4 years and then returned to UCLA Anderson as director of the Reardon program. In 2012, he became first a director and then later the assistant dean for MBA admissions. Alex, welcome to Admission Straight Talk.
Thank you, Linda. It's great to be here.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us. Now, I'd like to start with some just general questions, admissions questions, and then move more into COVID-related topics, okay?
Absolutely.
All right. So very basic, can you give an overview of the Anderson MBA program, full-time MBA program, for those listeners who just aren't that familiar with it, focusing on its more distinctive elements?
Sure. Anderson is one that it emphasizes early specialization and hands-on experiences. We're like the typical 2-year MBA program, having core classes, with electives following that. But I think one of the distinctive features, especially since we were the first school to have this as part of the requirement, is that all of our students have to complete one of 2 hands-on exercises or opportunities, that being the applied management research project, where you get a chance to work with an organization on a real business challenge, or a business creation option. So we were the first ones to create that opportunity for our MBA students. But I think also one of the things that I know this is going to be a question later on when you want to start talking about what are other distinctive features or things that we would want people to know about us, is that Anderson, our students, we're just not like, say, a one-trick pony in the sense that we're not just a consulting school or a finance school. There's a lot of different areas that our students can be interested in or focus on. And with that variety, that I think what is make our campus, our culture, so much more distinctive than other campuses, because students come in with diverse backgrounds and diverse interests going forward as well.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for that. Now, other than the lockdown and pandemic, what's new at UCLA Anderson, that kind of probably preceded the pandemic?
So, what's new at Anderson was that, one of the big things is that we launched a brand new campus, a brand new facility building, which is spectacular. Before this virus situation went down, the students were really enjoying it. The visitors who were coming, prospects, as well as those who had just been admitted and are still coming to the class of 2022 and beyond. Fantastic facility. Our new dean at that time, Tony Bernardo, he's still short of like a year being in the program. He's been here on the Anderson campus for over 20 years. So we had a new dean in place as well. So with that, those are two of the biggest things.
And did you do any STEM certification before the lockdown?
So funny you mentioned that. So we did get university approval, and so we're just sort of like crossing the T's and dotting the I's as well on that. We haven't made an official announcement on that piece, but yes, we do have STEM designation as well. We're just waiting to make the official PR now.
Okay, so folks, you heard it here first, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't get me in trouble.
Okay. Again, that's not talking specifically about COVID and the pandemic, but what don't people know about Anderson that you would like them to know? And I'm not talking about the STEM certification either. I'm talking on a bigger scale.
Yeah, sure. So, it kind of alluded to a little bit earlier, talking about the variety of choices that students can look at. Very few people know that just in the Los Angeles area alone, it's #1 in the world for small business activity. And the reason why I say that, when you look at the culture, when you look at the opportunities that many of our students are exploring and that our alumni are currently participating in, it's a very entrepreneurial culture. It's a very entrepreneurial environment. That's why I made it a point to mention the BCO, which is younger than the AMR opportunity as well. With our accelerator that is on campus, many of our students do still look at that opportunity of becoming an entrepreneur. Many may still focus on, say, some of the traditional career choices, tech, finance, consulting, but sort of as a secondary, they all also pursuing some entrepreneurial ventures as well.
I think Anderson was then the Graduate School of Management when I attended it, was also one of the first to have a program in entrepreneurship.
Yes, so the Price Center for Entrepreneurship, one of our 8 research centers, is phenomenal. The courses that they put on. And then again, like I said, when you look at the types of companies that alumni have started or are currently engaged at, it's so diverse. And the last thing I'll mention on that is I've seen, just for as long as I've been here, I've seen this increase in the number of students who are doing internships beyond just the summer opportunity. So they're doing internships during the academic year as well.
Is that in addition to the summer or instead of the summer?
It's in addition to the summer.
Wow.
So many of them, especially first years, will start exploring the opportunity in the winter quarter, which starts in January. Again, this is something that's not required as part of the graduation requirements, but our students who, probably about 60 to 70% of them are career switchers, are looking at sort of bolstering up their resume more so by looking at these different opportunities. And for some of them who are coming from big companies who want to look at a startup, it's a great way to sort of like get inside and kind of see what's the activity level at, what's the roles and responsibilities of people, because as you and I know, especially in an entrepreneurial venture, there's probably no day that's similar to the previous one, and you probably have to wear a lot of different hats at the same time.
Yeah, for sure. And that would also give applicants the opportunity to maybe try a particular field out, let's say winter quarter first year, and then another opportunity summer.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't keep track of the highest number, but I've heard some students do as many as 6 or 7 of these sort of short engagements of these internships during the academic year.
Wow, that's a lot. Okay, that's obviously a lot of opportunity to try things out.
Mm-hmm.
What can applicants applying to Anderson this year expect that they could not expect last year?
Sure, yes. So as you might imagine, like we were talking earlier with the virus situation. So, on the technical side, we extended our round 3 deadline. So with that being said, we've been seeing some of those individuals who may not have thought about applying this year in particular. So with that being said, anybody who has applied in the later rounds for the class of 22, we have made some adjustments, not only with the deadline, but people being able to apply without a test score, but they still would need to submit a test score in order to get a decision. So that's something like more on the technical side of things. And for obvious reasons, we are one of those schools that has decided to adjust our starting time frame for the class of 22. So we announced on May 15th that the official start of school is going to be September 28th. We still intend to start some of our virtual experiences the first week of August, in comparison to last year. We won't have those in-person offerings, but we will still have a number of different resources and services available, skill development, career development, academic development. All those things are going to help with the person making the transition to the in-person experience starting on September 28th.
So you're planning to open in person on September 28th?
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Okay. And what about students who can't get a visa? Are they going to be deferred, or what's happening with them?
So for those who can't come on campus as of September 28th, our plan is that people, when you arrive, you can still come to Anderson. You know, you mentioned sort of one of those magic words, because right now a lot of schools are saying that they have deferral policies, adding deferral policies, et cetera. Our deferral policy is one that if the individual decides that they are not going to join us in that particular academic year, we will allow them to apply in the following year with a very much a much simpler application, no application fee. We don't reserve seats for those who can join us, but we want to make sure, especially we know it's a very difficult decision to decide not to come. We want to make it that much easier in the future. No guarantees on the admission, but for my perspective, if you've been admitted once, it's a good chance that you're a great candidate again.
Right. And if they, we're not thinking about those who don't want to come because they're concerned or worried or nervous, those who just simply cannot physically be there. Will there be remote options for them?
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, I can't say for certain right now what those particular options will be. I spoke with my boss and the faculty chair earlier today, actually, and there is a task force. They're looking at those types of options because, again, we don't want to make it a significant burden, especially for those who are overseas and having to wake up in the middle of the night just to attend the class. I'm sure, I've read many of those sort of stories going on right now, especially in the undergraduate market. So they're exploring different ways to, again, deliver, say, pre-recorded classes to those who are overseas and still trying to make it over here to campus in Los Angeles.
Right. And I assume there would be accommodations made for those domestic applicants that maybe for health reasons don't want to be in a classroom environment also.
Yes, that's
Okay.
a great point that, while I've been talking about international market, for anybody who has difficulty making here to the campus for a variety of reasons, we're going to work with them. And we look at each case individually, again, talking about those who decide to defer. Over the years, I've fielded all of those phone calls, talking with them, make the process as humane as possible. And many times they understand. And I always tell them, when you're ready to apply, contact me. And many who decide to reapply, they do reach out to me, say, I just submitted the application, just want to let you know. And again, they appreciate sort of giving an explanation as well as sort of like the step-by-step process, which is on our website, but the step-by-step process on how to reapply in the future.
Okay, great, thank you. Now, typically at this time of the year, you'd be traveling the world, engaging with prospective students, and perhaps some Anderson students would probably accompany you, or maybe you'd meet up with recent alumni wherever you find yourself. How can prospective students engage with the Anderson community if they can't physically meet them or go to fairs or go to events or attend your receptions or visit campus for that matter?
Sure. So on a weekly basis right now, we do have online virtual general information sessions that are facilitated by our current students. Now, as we transition to the summer and with expectations that some of these travel bans and or some of these physical gatherings will sort of be lifted, many of our students and alumni do host coffee chats. Now, just say if that's not possible, we also will be hosting on a weekly basis from a staff perspective, also the opportunity to call in, have an opportunity to speak with staff in a more smaller environment, because like you, I have participated on some of those 200-person type of information sessions where there are panels, there are breakout rooms. We'll be doing those too. We'll be reaching out to specific regions around the world. We'll be adding alumni from those regions and areas, not just from a geographic standpoint, but from a career background, academic background as well. Because again, here it is early sort of in the cycle for those applying for classes of 2023 and beyond. But we know that getting the information out there is going to be important. And also we want to make sure that, especially like I said before, kind of demystify some things for people who may never have been to Los Angeles or even know about UCLA Anderson and may think that we're just an entertainment school, which we are not.
Right, no, definitely not. What can students starting their MBA program this September or the following September, though it's so much harder to predict a year out, as we've all learned, what can they, I mean, I know you're starting planning to meet in person September 28th, you said. Are the classes going to be smaller? Is there going to be social distancing? Will there be a hybrid model for those who can't get there? I mean, what's it going to look like, feel like?
Yeah, sure. Today, again, this is without having the final master plan. We are planning to, and I'll take these on a case-by-case basis, the way you described. For those who can't make it to the campus, definitely there'll be offerings available for them in a virtual format. There will be some hybrid types of delivery model as well, because the university is exploring how do we, from a typical, say, class size of 70 to 75 people, we know that we're not going to most likely be able to put everybody in the room. So possibly having people more like a sort of like a pod structure from that standpoint, where, having sort of the same group of people who we know with confidence are healthy, and we can deliver the instruction that is the same for all the so-called pods versus, again, having a big lecture room or a big classroom like that. So those are what's being discussed right now. I'll be honest with you, I haven't heard anything about putting shields up in between seats or anything like that. I don't think there's a need for those drastic measures. But again, when you look at the typical sort of Anderson start, a lot of the activity is in the fall quarter. All of our students are here. And then as you get later into the academic year, because the core classes are no longer required or available, then you start getting to electives. Students are really starting to hone in on what is sort of some of their career choices. I mentioned the internship opportunities during the academic year. So a lot of our students are taking advantage of that off campus as well. And they're even doing this now. So
that's one of my next question.
Yeah.
And can they do it now?
They're doing now, and I know some students who they're not, say, local to Los Angeles, right? I know a few. I speak with some of our some of the students on the diversity task force. Some are living in New York and New Jersey right now, who plan on doing their management consulting, summer internship, or their finance internships, and they know that they can still do the class instruction. But I know a couple of students who are doing an academic internship, primarily research focused, but at the same time, there are those opportunities as well.
Okay, great. I'm kind of chuckling because I think our guest in 2 weeks is a MBA student at a New York school, and he ended up spending the shutdown in Hawaii. So tough life,
Tough life for these MBA students. It's stories like that, that's like, what should I get an MBA? Let me tell you what the experience could be for you.
Waikiki, right? Actually, I don't know if that beach is open, but whatever. I'm sure he's having a good time. Okay, are you anticipating any changes to Anderson's application for the class of 2023, the upcoming application cycle, specifically the essay questions?
I don't anticipate any major changes since our application for this cycle is still currently open. We haven't had a chance to really do a deep dive to see the outcomes, but what I will tell you is that we don't anticipate any major changes. We did go through the same process last year, looking at our essay question. I will say with some confidence that, I'll say with total confidence, we do not want to make the application harder or more challenging. But with that being said, we will look at the essay question again to see if it did serve us what we wanted to get out of it. And if necessary, we will make some slight edits to it.
All right. What about, I can imagine with the shutdown hit, the focus was getting the classes online. That was the first focus and the first priority. But of course, the MBA education, specifically at Anderson, I think at Anderson as much or more so than any other MBA program, there's a lot that happens outside the classroom. How are the co-curricular activities and events going to take place if social distancing rules are still in effect?
Yeah, so I think what the administration has did in coming into this, once everything went virtual, they just made some modifications without shutting things down. Like one of the popular activities from a social standpoint, dinner for eights. So they still facilitated those paying for people's dinners, having it shipped to their homes. And so, yeah, you don't have the face-to-face, the in-person activity, which is unfortunate, but the spirit, people, having the right people, quote, at the table, having a lively conversation, having exchange of information, ideas with the key sort of hosts, that still goes on. The faculty, they put in some courses that were right in line with what's going on. So there were economics, supply chain classes, marketing classes, what the impact of COVID has been in certain areas. And those are very popular with students. So yeah, I totally understand what you're saying. It's just like, for those schools that pride themselves, like UCLA Anderson, on the culture, how can you keep that still in effect? I think and this is the great feedback that we continue to get even in this year from those students who we admitted and who attended our virtual admit month. They told us that of all the schools, Anderson was so engaging, so open to answering questions, just like being there to open the email, start a Zoom conversation, etc. So those things in our DNA, as you well know, are still there, even if we're not in person. So yes, this is a crisis that'll be sort of hopefully in the short term, but that's not something that we're just going to sort of retrench and like just wait it out. We're still going to go out there, seeing how we can help people, delivering the resources as best we can. If it's even a delivery model,
right.
With food, whatever it may be, we want to make sure that we're going to help people as best we can.
That's great, thank you. In light of the pandemic, actually, let me go back to no, this is the question I want to ask now. In light of the pandemic and the crazy end to last year's admission cycle, which is still ongoing, and it's been pretty wild. Are you going to read applications with a slightly different perspective in terms of the qualities that you're looking for? Are you going to be weighing differently certain qualities than you did before the pandemic?
Today, I don't think so. I'm just like, when you think about it, there are going to be some people who are going to be negatively impacted from a career standpoint. We know that some people are going to be losing their jobs. They're going to be worried about how is that going to be sort of reflected or viewed by the admissions committee. The good thing is that when you look at the admissions committee and sort of the staff that I work with, these are experienced professionals. They were around 10 years ago, when the last sort of big recession occurred. So again, while this is different, we always have made it a point that we give applicants, I believe, a lot of information, sort of space to explain their story, whether it be with the optional essay. So as we are reading these essays, looking at the application, some of the things that are still going to be consistent will be, why do you need an MBA? Why now? Why from UCLA Anderson? We will definitely understand if somebody says, my company laid me off, or I thought that this was a great time for me to make a career switch, and as like we've talked about in the past, like whenever there's a crisis, there's also a great opportunity to do something different, to do something bold. So for those who may just say, like, I'm just going to go get an MBA, there's still going to be the questions why. We're still going to interview the best candidates to make sure they're going to be the right fit for our community, our culture. So with a little bit, like, yes, we'll look at it, but we just know that, we'll probably see more people who are unfortunately unemployed or impacted in a different way by the virus situation. But at the same time, we're still going to be looking for the best people who are going to be the best individuals for our culture and have the best stories to talk about why Anderson, why MBA. I'm really excited because I think those who are going to take the opportunity to look at what an MBA can do for them at this point in time is going to be, I think, a larger number in so many different ways than we've seen before.
I also think that the pandemic may have given people an opportunity to differentiate themselves and shine.
Absolutely. Yes.
Take initiative, show leadership, all that, and flexibility, adaptability.
Yes, absolutely. And one thing as we talk about trends, just hearing the different stories right now about how some individuals are having to take care of parents or siblings. So just seeing those trends and those stories and just seeing sort of the grit behind those individuals, the courage behind those individuals is going to be some things that, again, are just resonate with who we are at UCLA Anderson.
Now, you kind of touched on this, but I want to go into it a little bit more. You know, some applicants will say, this is a great time for the MBA. Either I got laid off or my job is at risk. But others are going to be worried about starting the MBA, taking on the cost of the MBA, and graduating into a weakened economy, or applying when deferrals may have shrunk the number of available seats, or whether there is a spike in applications because everybody figures it's a great way to sit out a recession. How would you respond to those concerns?
Sure. So one that you mentioned about how deferrals are going to take away seats, you know, I think on a lot of times that sounds worse than what it actually is. Knowing a lot of my friends at other schools, we know that those are on a case-by-case basis. So it's not going to take up as many seats as you may think. So that's one thing. The spike in applications, you can't get caught up on the numbers. You know, I know a lot of times you see these big GMAT numbers or big GPAs, whatever it may be. I always tell candidates, even when you look at UCLA Anderson, look at the range of the scores. You know, you don't need a 720 to get an Anderson. Look at the range of scores. But the thing for us is that, can people do the work? Can they do the academics? That's where the transcripts are going to come into play. That's where the additional coursework is going to come to play. I would never sort of tell somebody not to apply. You know, I always tell them, it's just like, again, tell me why you need an MBA. I start there. I want to find out why do you think you need an MBA at this point? And if somebody is more in the herd mentality, is like, I think this is something that I just need to do, then I would be worried. You know, I want to know that you have a plan. And really, when you look at our application, Linda, it's just like the best ones we're going to ask for, what are your short-term and long-term goals? So people are going to have to put a lot of thought into that. They're going to have to tell us, you know, how are they going to leverage sort of their pre-MBA experience, and what are they going to do during their time in business school and afterwards. So we want to know people have a plan. And then when the interview is going to come into play, it's just like, it's almost like just an opportunity to close the deal, right? If you get an interview request from us, then it's really for you to come and just tell us on why do you want to be at Anderson. And, you know, a majority of people can close the deal a lot of times, but, you know, don't put the I would say, don't put the cart before the horse, and kind of look at all these things about, I heard about deferrals or spikes in applications. If you're a great candidate, if you think you're a great candidate, I would say continue with that, but, you know, look at the process, just like they're watching this podcast right now, visiting your website, talking to you. It's like, as you kind of talk to them, and you know this best, it's like, okay, tell me why, what's your story? What schools do you think? And as they go through that journey of researching, some things are going to sort of stay on the table, and some are going to fall to the floor, to the point where they like narrow their schools down to the right choice, and even the degree. Again, you know, again, I sometimes say I'm a homer, right? I'm like, I got my MBA, I work at Anderson, but after getting a master's in electrical engineering as well.
I didn't know about that one.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. I missed that one.
No, that's okay. That's okay. You know, I can still do a few calculus equations, but that's about it. But I'll tell people that between the two degrees, master's degrees that I have, the MBA is so much more versatile.
Oh, yes.
It's a pivot in my career, a lot of things that you already know, but it's just like for that young person, that 20-year-old who may have some thoughts about it, let me tell you, it's going to exceed your expectations if you go and get an MBA.
Yeah, no, I'm very happy I got my MBA, and I actually didn't use it initially. I only used it later in my career, and I'm very happy I had it. Again, the next question is actually related to what we've been talking about a little more tangentially. What about the 2020, in other words, this year's graduating class that probably is just about to graduate, and then the 2021 grads? For the 2020 class, what percentage of the class had rescinded offers? And for the class of 2021, what about rescinded internship offers? Are you having much difficulty with that? Or are UCLA students having much difficulty with that?
Yeah, so I don't have specific numbers, but I will tell you I have heard of a few stories of people who have had rescinded offers, and it's in the industries that you might expect, like retail, some travel, entertainment. There's been impact as well. But what we did as a school is we did reach out to the alumni community, which has always been very supportive of our students. And as a call to action is for them, if there are opportunities within their organizations, to please, reach out to the school. And just like within a matter of 2 weeks, 20 opportunities did come up. Yeah, which is fantastic. So, I won't say that, it's sunshine and rainbows everywhere. There are some students who are still trying to figure out what's going to happen for them because they had, say, some niche interest. But one of the best things I think is that, especially, even talking about the class of 21, some of these companies, and again, outside of the industries that I mentioned, many are still committed to the offers that they provide to our class of 21 students doing their summer internships. I've heard stories where, like, say, in the management consulting space, they've had to, say, adjust the timeline of what those sort of opportunities may look like, especially from a virtual standpoint. But I've even heard of commitments for full-time offers after the summer internship. So those are great signs. And at least for the few students that I sort of counsel and stay in touch with, just because of my relationship way before business school, I tell them that, this again is a great opportunity right now in this crisis. So don't just sit back and relax, and they can appreciate that, especially as they talk to alumni who went through, say, this sequence of events back in 2008, 2009 timeframe.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting times, like we were saying, and everybody else has been saying.
Yeah, and I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Just one other comment that I would make. I think, like, one of the things that I think talented individuals in general, they just don't sit back, right? So here's a great opportunity to possibly learn a new language, learn coding, think about some of those skill sets that at the end of the day is going to differentiate you, that even as an MBA applicant, especially that, well, it's not part of our interview sequence yet. We said, well, so what did you do, while you were laid off? Did you just sort of like pine away, or did you decide to maybe start your own business, or maybe you got involved more with the community? So,
or maybe you started some kind of delivery service for your neighborhood, or so many opportunities. So many opportunities.
Exactly.
The list is really endless.
Mm-hmm.
I know that in the past has always been something that schools have looked to. That is, what have you done during a period of layoff? Did you use it for something constructive? Did you turn lemons into lemonade? Like, going back to, I don't know if that was before we started or after we started, but we were discussing that a little bit, right? What advice would you give to a potential MBA applicant thinking to apply in fall 2020? This upcoming cycle.
Yeah, so one of the things, when you're looking at UCLA Anderson in particular, there's so much great information on the website, on how to engage. You asked me that question earlier. So we have a community of individuals who definitely want to talk to you about their own experiences with the school. I would also, again, think about that question, like, why do you need an MBA now? You may not be able to answer it, like, say, in a 30-second pitch now at that point in the fall, but that's where I think coming and talking to students, alumni, staff, and trying to see, like, okay, what is I won't say the typical MBA experience is like, but what is the MBA experience at UCLA Anderson? That'll give you some ideas. And then as you start figuring out, okay, if I'm going to be applying to UCLA Anderson, what are the deadlines? What are the requirements? If you're thinking about, just starting in the fall of putting all these materials together, you'll start to see getting letters of recommendation. Hopefully you've taken a standardized test score. We still require that. So hopefully that's on your radar too. So I think that's where that whole idea about having a plan comes from. So I would first things go to our website, see how you can get engaged with our community, start building out a plan on how to submit a competitive application. And as many people know, I'd be willing to speak with anybody, time permitting, or if I can't do it, I have an army of dedicated individuals who would love to share their own experiences about why you should apply to UCLA Anderson. And then after that, I think what you will find, especially if things go well and you apply, you're interviewed and you're admitted, your expectations are going to be exceeded as somebody who's going to enroll at the school. And it's one of those things that, yeah, I can tell you all of this, but you have to experience it yourself. And then you'll say like, wow, I can't believe the 2 years have gone by so quickly. Just a funny story. Again, because of all my global travel, so to speak, and many times, like you said, I'd be on the road right now, but probably a few months earlier, I would be flying to different cities, Atlanta, Chicago, New York, welcoming those who've been admitted. And just a few days ago, I saw somebody on LinkedIn announce like, okay, my time at Anderson has come up. I'm happy to announce that I'll be starting at Amazon in the summer, or whenever this thing lists.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh my gosh, you're a second year, you're graduating? And I was like, it just seemed like maybe last year that we were in Atlanta, you know? And he was just like, yeah, I remember that dinner. And I'm just like, man, that time just goes by so quickly, not just for them, but myself as well.
Right, right. Are there any questions that you would have liked me to ask you before we wrap this up?
You know, I think it's almost, in my mind, one of those public service announcements, but I think you asked all of those, like, what could I be doing now? The value of an MBA. I think you, like, you know, those are probably some of the important ones to complement the ones specific to UCLA Anderson, because I think for a lot of people, you know, the cost of education may be a hurdle, also just the opportunity. But I think when you start looking at sort of the ROI, and the investment, you know, think about that investment piece. Anderson, we give out fellowships. We're one of the more affordable MBAs. So, you know, when you see these price tags, you got to go deeper. And that's what talking to students is all about. There's very few students who are going to say, I went to school for free at Anderson, even if they did get fellowships of a sizable amount. That's where the academic internships, as I like to call them, come into play, where people start piecemealing, like, how can I make the MBA affordable? Being a TA, working, you know, obviously from the summer internship, scholarships outside of Anderson. So I think those are some of those like public service announcements that with today's sort of prospects who are probably coming in with some student debt already, that they're already thinking like, why would I want to pile on more? But if you start looking at the numbers sort of like on a long term basis, 10, 20 years out, it's a great investment, not also from a financial standpoint, but also from your social capital as well and building up your network.
Well, the GMAC data from alumni, including the alumni that graduated in 2008 and 2009, you know, the tough years, or, you know, right after the dot-com bust, they all, it's still overwhelmingly satisfied with reporting nice, healthy ROI and you know, the kind of data that most educational institutions would love to have, or any kind of institution that's providing a service in terms of customer satisfaction.
Yes, yes. And again, I know it's cliche to say about the networks, but I think that that is like another big thing. We didn't spend a lot of time on it. We talked about it though, but I would say it's just that network. It's like, as probably, especially like the people who listen to your podcast, they're very good, competitive individuals, great profiles. They're probably going to have multiple choices. I think that once you start looking at the different school cultures and things like that, the ones that are going to really resonate with you are going to probably be the best choices for you. And of course, again, like I said, I'm biased, right? So I think Anderson is going to be the best choice for you.
Sounds good. Well, I certainly liked it. Okay. And so did you.
Yes.
Alex, I want to thank you so much for joining me today. Where can listeners and potential applicants learn more about Anderson's full-time MBA program?
Thank you, Linda.
Where do you have a URL for them where they can learn more about the program?
Sure, absolutely. So it's going to be www.anderson.ucla.edu is where you can find more information. And of course, you know, I can't hide. I'm all over the internet. So you'll even see me in the staff directory. Don't hesitate to reach out to me. My email's up there too as well. And would love to talk to you more about the Anderson MBA.
Wonderful. We'll include links in the show notes at exhibit.com/371 to Anderson's website, as well as to related articles. And we actually have several podcast interviews or blog post interviews with Anderson MBA students and grads. So you can check them out all out, and they are linked to at exhibit.com/371. A quick reminder, don't miss the Mba Admissions Quiz. Find out if you are really ready to apply and if you are competitive at your target schools. Take the quiz at accept.com/371quiz. Listener, thank you too for joining Alex, Lawrence, and me for our 371st episode. If you find the show worthwhile, please subscribe. Make sure you don't miss any future shows, be they with admissions directors, professors, current students, test prep pros, or alumni doing great things. Thanks again for coming. This is Admissions Straight Talk, and I'm Mba Abraham. I'll talk to you again next week.